So, Bloodsport 1988 is an American martial arts action film starring Jean-Claude Van Damme in his breakout role. This film is loosely based on the claims of Frank Dukes, a martial arts expert who says he competed in and won a secret full-contact martial arts tournament called the Kumite. Some people kind of have an issue with that, but side issue here anyway. So if we just stick to the plot of the film itself and not the story that it's based on, Frank Dukes, played by Van Damme, is an American soldier trained in ninjutsu. He goes AWOL from the military to travel to Hong Kong and compete in the underground Kumite tournament, a deadly competition where the world's best fighters battle in no-holds-barred matches. Now, if you're familiar with 80s action films, the whole buddy cop thing will be something you're familiar with. Now, although they're not cops, this movie has a little bit of that because Frank Dukes, played by Van Damme, bonds with fellow fighters, including a brawler named Ray Jackson, American guy. He faces off against a reigning champion and a brutal fighter called Chong Li, played by Bolo Young. You might remember him more prominently from Enter the Dragon, but he was also in a few other Van Damme films, or at least a couple anyway from memory, like Double Impact. Anyway, the US military pursues Dukes, trying to bring him back because he's gone AWOL in order to take part in the tournament. The film builds up to a final showdown between Frank Dukes and Chong Li. Now, the key themes of this movie are martial arts, honour and discipline, personal growth, proving oneself, brotherhood, loyalty, overcoming adversity. It's an absolute classic, definitely check it out. And the soundtrack, which I'm going to talk about here, is also a major part. Hello and welcome to Brand X Reviews. Now, if you've been watching the channel, you'll have seen that we've taken a recent focus more on action movies, particularly the 70s, 80s and 90s as a kind of golden era of them. The film Bloodsport would definitely be one that is right bang in the centre of that, pretty much bang in the centre. It's mid-80s. And it's a film that pretty much started Van Damme's career as a major celebrity, a major Hollywood action star. Now, I haven't done any record reviews on this channel recently, so this will kind of cover both grounds in that sense. This is a record that came out a few years ago, and it's obviously the soundtrack to the film Bloodsport. And it's funny, actually, because I tend to listen to records when I'm working out in my gym, my home gym. This is something that I ripped from the audio on a YouTube video where the entire soundtrack was uploaded, and I ripped it onto a cassette tape because in my gym I like to have cassettes and records. Kind of weird quirk that I've got, I suppose. So when I was able to actually get this on record itself, that was pretty cool. So let's have a quick look at the thing anyway. So obviously here are the tracks. So it's a 2-disc set, and obviously there's 2 sides. So there's four sides in effect. So you can see the track lists there. The YouTube video that I ripped all those years ago is actually exactly the same as this, although there's a song called Steal the Night, which isn't on this. But pretty much everything else that was on that is on this, and in the exact same chronological order as well. Now, if you're familiar with a guy called Stan Bush, he's a guy that did some songs to action movies and so on. I think he did one from the Transformers movie. Was it called The Touch? That was actually written for the film, or it was going to be used in the film Cobra originally. They want the Stallone film that I reviewed recently on this channel. I don't know if it was written for the film as such, but it was originally going to be used in the film, and then it kind of got rejected for whatever reason. So they ended up using it in Transformers. Side issue anyway, we're talking about Bloodsport here. But just so you know, Stan Bush is a pretty good guy. He did the soundtrack, a couple of songs to the soundtrack of The Last Kumite, which I also reviewed last year. So just for context, a lot of the things that I've talked about on this channel are kind of connected to this. So the artwork on this is really nice. I'm only just getting started, to be honest. If you've seen the movie, you'll see all the little references, like there's a scoreboard there that pops up during the film at the end of every fight. And you'll recognise the characters on here as well. So that's the front and the back. The actual score is done by can't get my words out. Paul Herzog, who also did the score to The Last Kumite last year. So some major connections there to that film. Now this is something that I picked up off eBay. I think it was last year actually, or the year before. And it wasn't terribly expensive, but in a lot of cases you can be paying quite a bit of money for this. I've seen them going for like £60 and so on. I think I might have got this for like the late 20s, like 28, 29 pounds, maybe from memory. So the inside of the thing, as you can see, very nice. I don't want to bend it too much that way, but there you go. Just kind of zoom in a little bit so you can see the attention to detail there. Right. Now, something I want to mention, this plays at 45 RPM, so I can't imagine any record players do have the option to do that. But basically, that's the speed that you would play singles at. I'm sure you're going to be familiar with record players and how they work, so I don't really need to get into that. Now, there's presumably, I can't remember from memory, but different editions of this, different colours, different splatter patterns, as they call them. This is the one that I've got. So there's your track listing on there. I'll just turn it over very carefully without actually touching the grooves, because that's a big no-no. When you're a record collector, you should know better than that. And then the artwork. This is on disc A. So there you go for that one. And disc B, or disc 2, you've got this. And I actually really like the other side of this one. This one's actually better than the previous one. I'll just turn it around very carefully again. There is an art to doing this. If you've seen the film, you'll get a reference there. There's a bit in the film where they're playing on an arcade game. So pretty cool that you've got that incorporated into the artwork on this. Then finally get this insert as well. I'll just show you the thing up close so you can see the details. Very nice. Then on the back you've got some notes from Paul Herzog. He did the score. This was written in 2021, so that's around about the time this came out. So it's been out for a few years now, this, because I bought it about 18 months ago from memory. And Paul Herzog, I've seen him on interviews before, and he's talked about this. He was brought in by Canon Studios to do the score from this, and he had to pay for the studio. Well, he talks about it there, actually, about how he had to pay for everything himself. In terms, well, he had to figure out how to pay for it all. So with the budget that he was allocated, so there's the details there. Pretty cool. So yeah, really good film, and the soundtrack to this is just a really good one to play, especially if you work out in a gym and you can choose what music plays. Definitely would suggest this one. It's pretty cool. Now, I do actually have the film in 4K Blu-ray, and it is a nice box set as well. I say box set, it's one film. But you get loads of cool things, similar to what you got with this record, to be fair. So at some point in the near future, I might actually do a review of that as well. Because it's one of my favourite films, this. I know a few people that say this is one of their kind of go-to feel-good movies. So if that's something that you'd like to see, feel free to leave some feedback. It might prompt me to do it, because otherwise I'll probably forget. But yeah, there you go, Bloodsport soundtrack on record. Definitely worth it if you can get it as cheap as possible. You can usually get these things secondhand, so I would shop around, because I was able to get this down from a lot of the more expensive ends that I saw this for sale for. So right, I will leave there and say thank you very much for watching.